As you withdraw from Iraq, there is a lot of equipment that is remaining there. Would it not be better for that equipment to come here to Afghanistan and be used here?
There's a lot of equipment that's coming from Iraq here. So there's nothing that's just going to be, certainly nothing will be abandoned there. Some items of equipment will be sold or provided to the Iraqi army, I'm sure.
The Canadians will be leaving Kandahar by the end of 2011. Is this not in some way an admittance of defeat? And once they hand over to the Americans, what will the Americans be doing that is different to what the Canadians did?
I don't think the Canadians have been unsuccessful. The Canadians have done an amazing job with a very small force, helping to develop infrastructure, helping to try and improve the Afghan security forces in the area. What we've done is provide about a 300% increase in the military capability around Kandahar, but it's still under the command of a Canadian general officer.
We've spoken to some Afghans who say that word is given before the foreign forces come into an area, and that gives the Taliban the opportunity to lie low, let the foreign forces do what they have to do, and then once they leave, the Taliban resurface. If this is the case, does this not mean that your military operations are doomed from the start?
I think that assessment is based on a false premise. It's based on the premise that when we leave, when the coalition leaves, that the Afghan security forces are no better than they are right now, and that the Afghan people and the Afghan government is no better than it is right now. The whole concept is that we are here to provide an opportunity for Afghan security forces to grow and to continue to get better, and for Afghan government to continue to get better.
But mistakes undermine everything. Why are there mistakes still being made?
That's the nature of warfare. The friction is unbelievable, because you cannot have perfect information all the time. We work very hard to make sure that innocent people are not killed. Our soldiers put their own lives at risk to avoid injuring innocents, even though the enemy will fire from a mosque. The enemy will shoot at us from compounds where women and children are behind the walls, knowing that we will not shoot back in order to protect those civilians. Still, mistakes will be made. There's no doubt about that.
We interviewed one of your commanders who said that he would estimate that Afghanistan today is somewhere between the late 1700s and the early 1800s, and that what the foreign forces are trying to do is push 200 years of civilization into a time period of 10 years. Would you agree with this assessment? And if so, doesn't it seem as if it's a task that just cannot succeed?
I would tell you that there are places in the United States and in Europe that are still like the 1700s and 1800s. So in terms of modern infrastructure or how people might live. So no doubt this is an agrarian society, particularly in the South. The economy is based on agriculture, and the canal irrigation system that people use and some of the farming techniques are the same ones that have been feeding people for hundreds of years. So I don't think that there's an expectation in every Afghan family that they'll have internet and large screen TVs and 2 cars. You know, there's not a demand for that yet that I've seen, and so I think it's reasonable for us to focus on continuing to improve access to clean water, education, healthcare, that sort of thing. So whatever century that is, I think is immaterial.
Would you not say that the war on terror is over, and that now most of your resources are being spent on rebuilding Afghanistan? And if so, how do you justify spending so much American taxpayer money and putting human lives at risk for this purpose?
First of all, we see secure Afghanistan as a place where Al-Qaeda and other international terrorist organizations cannot have safe haven, cannot train, cannot prepare for attacks on the United States or other members of the coalition. So I see a very clear connection between what we're doing here and the national security of the United States and the other countries of the coalition. Remember, the attacks of 9/11 were conducted by people who trained right here in Afghanistan. So that's the connection, and I see it as a very clear connection. As far as helping Afghanistan, it is a comprehensive approach.
The Soviets were here 30 years ago, and they left after nearly 10 years. In what way would you say that what you're doing here is similar and or different to what they did then?
I think it's similar in that we have dealt with very, very challenging terrain. The geography of Afghanistan makes military operations very challenging. The people of Afghanistan who have lived here for centuries clearly are very tough and hardy people to have survived in this climate and this kind of terrain. But our mission as a coalition now is to protect that population, not to dominate this population. We have no desire to stay here. What we want is an Afghanistan that is not a safe haven for terrorist training and preparations for attack on the United States and other countries. So I think our purpose for being here is completely different from what the Soviet purpose for being here was.
Thank you very much for joining us here on RT.
It's my pleasure.